Hi guys, and welcome to the Tinkle session at Kala Ghoda Arts Festival 2021, the first virtual edition of the Kala Ghoda Arts Festival in 2021. This year's theme is Unlocked, which is why we are all going to be doing this session from the comfort and privacy of our own homes. Not so private, evidently, but even then. My name is Kuriakose. I work with Tinkle. I've been working with Tinkle for 5 years now. I help out in terms of their digital work and social media work and a lot of the brand work that we do. And it's been such a great ride. And I'm so honored to be here anchoring this session where we get to talk to the creative forces behind Tinkle as it is today. They've been guiding it for the past 10 odd years together. So without any further ado, let's give it up for our guests, Ms. Rajani Thindiath, Editor-in-Chief, and Mr. Savio Mascarenhas, the Group Art Director. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Doing good in
Excited
work
to be here.
lockdown.
Are you guys feeling unlocked yet? That is the theme for this year's.
Slowly.
Savio, what about you?
Yes.
How are things at your end in
Well,
Thane?
we have been working,
Kalyan?
working from home. Yeah, and virtually. So, yeah, I've been seeing you guys virtually for almost 8 months now, 8, 9 months now, almost. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the situation
Yeah.
that we are all been put in.
Yeah, it's ironic because the three of us used to sit right next to each other in the office. No? Like it was
Exactly.
literally
Yeah.
shoulder distance over the cubicle, and now this is how we've been seeing each other for almost 365 days. We're gonna hit it. It's gonna be a year since
Yes.
till
Yeah.
we start sitting like that again, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So, for the people watching and for the people tuning in right now, Rajni has been the editor of Tinkle for the past 10 years. She's been working with the magazine for 13. During her time, Tinkle has grown leaps and bounds. It's evolved in many, many ways. There are many, many new characters that have come up. Rajni herself is responsible for two very, very interesting character universes. One is the world of the super weirdos, and the other is Yogi Yodas, which is a much more recent addition to the roster. And we will get into that. Thank you so much, Rajni, for taking the time out to do this today and meet our participants at Kala Ghoda.
Thank you so
Savio, on the other hand, Savio, on the other hand, has been a group art director. He's been illustrating for Tinkle for most of my childhood, anyway. Like I mean, so like Shambu and like the Tinkle I grew up on, I realized much later that Savio is the man who's been behind those illustrations, like in the late '90s and so on. So he joined as an artist, was hired by Uncle Pai himself. Yes,
Yes.
and
Perfectly.
then has and then worked his way up the ladder, like illustrating, drawing. He's drawn Mops and Fur. He's drawn Shambu. He still draws Shambu today. He does a whole bunch of the slice of life stories. It's just it's amazing this guy's tenacity at the job. And like to be still so excited about the character 25, 26 years on. This is what I want to be when I grow up. Thank you so much,
Thank
Savi,
you.
for joining us.
Thank you, Korea. Thank you. Yeah.
So we have a very fun session lined up for today for everyone watching. What we're going to do is basically talk a little bit about what Tinkle used to be, especially our characters and what they look like, what their behavior was like, and so on. And we'll sort of trace the evolution of where they are today and how they are doing today. But before we start, I thought what we could start with could be a fun session by Savio where he draws everybody's favorite Tinkle character. And there's no prizes for guessing who that is. Because as we all know, even like 40 years down the line, there's only one character who just leaps off the pages. When you say Tinkle, that's Supandi. So Sav, do you want to do the honors and show us how to draw Supandi?
Definitely. So again, one of my favorite characters growing up was Supandi, and of course, I was a huge fan of Ram Vairkar then. So Supandi was automatically everyone's favorite, and I guess what makes him lovable is his the stories are fantastic. The jokes are like something that you all would associate with, but the look of Supandi is something which is so unique. And hats off to Mr. Vairkar for doing that. And that's the thing about creating a character, which I guess we will talk about more later, is about how do you make your character so unique that it just stands out in a crowd. And that is what Supandi has been doing for years now. So I will show you how we draw Supandi. Of course, it has evolved over the years, and I guess we will have a little session about that too, the evolution of a character. So I will quickly show you how do we draw Supandi. Okay.
There it
So
is.
yeah.
Ever trusty Photoshop.
Okay. Could
I
you
mean, to
anything?
start with, we should talk about how, like, when you
Yes.
started, for example, at Tinkle, did
Yeah.
you guys do stuff on Photoshop, or was it like all hand drawn and scanned?
It was all paper. Like when I started, it
Paper,
was all
right?
paper. Yeah. So
And
we
then
used to
when did
do
the
on
shift
paper.
happen?
I think the shift happened way back in 2003, 2004, when we gradually shifted onto, like, the designers first we went onto the computers, and later on it was the artists, because the artists were taking time to get used to working on the computer using the digital pad. But now I guess everyone has got comfortable with that. So yeah, so that has been the transition for us artists. But I think somewhere along the line we do miss the paper. Okay, so I would when I think of Supandi, we always think of the way he's formed. He's very angular. So it's like very flat, and comes with a very boxy. It's not like it's not like Shambu is very curvy and use a lot of shapes like circles and ovals when we think of Shambu. But when you look at Supandi, it's very very angular. So he's got this flat head and this long nose and the chin, which is almost in line with his nose over here, and then his eyes. Okay, and he's got three strands of hair.
Let's make it 3 tufts of hair. We'll give him that much.
Yeah,
3 tufts of hair. It's
three
it's. I've
tufts.
always like wondered, like, what is this shape? Like, so Pandi's head shape is not a shape. Like, it's not a shape that, like, is mathematically recognized. It's not a square or a triangle or a circle, but it's got elements of all of these,
Yeah,
right?
it's got. Yeah, if you actually break up, like if you look at it, it could be this shape here and this
Yeah.
shape here.
So
So
it's
you
a
look at,
triangle on top of a trapezoid.
yes. So it's very easy to for artists to break up this character as such,
That's true. There's
So
a parallelogram also in there somewhere. Like,
yes, exactly.
it's a nightmarish
Yeah.
geometry lesson. That is Supandi's head.
So that's Supandi, and of course this is just a scribble, and then after that, of course, we would like I would say this would be the pencils of the character, and then once we ink it, we will draw the lines more clearly.
So
Hmm.
we've had different artists over the year draw Supandi, right?
Yeah,
So it was first drawn by
Ram Vairkar.
Ram Vairkar, right? And then now we have his daughter Archana Ambedkar,
Achha.
who
Yes,
handles Supandi drawing duties. And
yeah,
you've also drawn Supandi, like, on and off, like, like,
yeah. So
whenever you get the time.
yeah, exactly. When I've got, in fact, there's another interesting person also who has drawn Supandi is Sanjeev Vairkar, and Sanjeev Vairkar is also Ram Vairkar's son. So there
Son,
was,
yeah,
yeah,
he's an
I think there
animator,
was, yeah,
very
for a couple
famous
of years,
animator.
he is an animator today. And Sanjeev has also drawn Supandi, then Archana. So it has been a legacy of the Vairkars for all these years, or 40 years of Supandi, that it has been in the family as such. We have all drawn
But
Supandis on various occasions as,
it's interesting
hmm,
how, like, even within the Vairkar family, they
yeah,
all have very different takes on how this character
they do.
looks,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I mean,
You
for
know,
example, I have here an image of
hmm,
Supandi. I'll just pull it up on the screen.
hmm.
This is, I think, Supandi in his first ever appearance.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That's the way he
And
used to look earlier. That's the Ram Vairkar version of Supandi.
this is the Ram Bharata version where he's,
Yeah.
slightly leaner. His face is leaner. He's
Yeah.
got a little bit of a pot belly also happening. Like, very
Exactly.
He had
tiny.
wrinkles here, na? Korea. The original version would have had a lot of wrinkles. He used to look older earlier.
He used to look older,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
This is in fact the second iteration. There is an
Yeah.
iteration before this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And he has more hair also,
Yeah.
interestingly. Yeah.
Mota.
Yeah, he had more hair.
He had more hair. And now this is an image of Archana's work. This is Archana's take
Archana,
on the character.
they comes by.
Right? Obviously, the glasses is part of the getup. He doesn't wear glasses, but his
Yeah, this
hair is thinned out and his face has become broader,
Hmm.
right? Which
And
is very
younger.
close to even younger also. Overall, he's become much younger.
so there's a lot of transition which has happened with this character. It's very dynamic. The way Supandi has been portrayed earlier, he was more of the rural bumpkin type of a character. But I guess now he has moved to the city. He's doing jobs and he's doing all sort of jobs. And I guess the writers have put him into some very interesting and respectable places. But then Supandi, being Supandi, has managed to lose his job at the end of the day. So yeah.
How many jobs do you think Supandi has held over his 37-year-long existence?
Thousands.
Yes, of course. I think he's done practically everything.
Thousand? He would have crossed 1,000 jobs.
Don't you think so? It's been 40 years.
So I
And
mean, basic. There's about 770 issues of the magazine out right now, right?
see, we are also thinking about how many jobs have appeared in Tinkle. Now, beyond Tinkle, there would be other jobs.
That's true. That's true. We have no idea what's happening when he's off duty, off duty.
Exactly, when he's not there.
So this brings me to another character. Actually, something I've always felt, especially in today's iteration of the character, Supandi shares a lot of design similarities with another very popular Tinkle character, and that is Tantri,
Yeah,
right?
he does.
So in terms of just the angularness of the face, the long nose,
Yes.
you know,
Okay, and this is the version which you would see now in the comics where Vineet draws it. And what happens here is a little modification of the character shape as such. And here you
yeah.
have
Because see,
Tantri.
at this level, if you didn't say it was you're drawing Tantri, I would think you're drawing Supandi, right? He looks
Exactly.
exactly like Supandi, right?
Exactly.
And then the turban comes in,
The
and it's
turban.
very clearly it jumps like this. Suddenly, the switch happens, and this is very clearly Tantri now that you're drawing.
Yeah. So that transition is this part of it. This part is where the transformation happens from Supandi to Tantri as such. And of course, then you add in the
The
Tantri's
mooch.
the mooch, and you give him an evil grin, and here you have the most evil minister ever.
But Tantri is also he's a character that's had a very storied sort of art history. He's gone through so many iterations. I don't think there's any other character in the Tinkle pantheon who's had as many character changes as Tantri has, right? And so, how many changes do you think has happened over the years? How many artists have worked on Tantri and
At least five, I think. Because there was Anand
five
Mande.
artists?
Anand Mande, Sanjeev Varkar has done it. Archana has tried it. Prachi Kilekar has done it. There's one more name I'm missing right in the beginning.
Wait, Savio's talking about something. Savio's unmute. Savio,
Yeah. So
who
there's
is the missing artist?
Sham Desai and Ajit Vasekar. So Anand
Ajit.
Mande was the first. Then there's Ashok Dongre. I think
Ashok
it was
Dongre. So
Ashok Dongre,
10 people.
Anand Mande, Sham Desai, Ajit Vasekar. Then it has been, I have drawn it for some time. Prachi has drawn it. And then there's Vineet who's drawing it now.
Abhijit has done one version for the holiday special.
Has drawn. Yeah.
So, it's a really fun character to sort of play around with that, in the sense that he exists in so many forms and
Yes.
I mean I have an image here of Tantri from when he first came up.
This is Anand
And
Mande
he
or
looks-
Ashok Dongre.
This is
This is
Ashok Dongre.
drastically different. This is drastically different from what Tantri looks now,
Yeah.
right now, right?
Yeah.
And because if you look at him now,
This is closer to the Supandi version.
Yes.
this is the version that's definitely closer to the Supandi version.
Yeah.
But it's still like it's I mean you can still see the similarities. I mean the similar features in terms of the mooch, like the turban, the weird hair, a little bit of hair.
The costumes especially.
Yeah, the costumes especially. And of course, the character stayed very true to himself. Like, in that aspect, I feel like Supandi and Shambu also, they've gone through some amount of change. Whereas with Tantri, it's the design that's kept changing, but the characters stayed very, very constant. And it's still
Yeah.
very, very relevant. Like, it's still a lot of fun to like follow Tantri's exploits, right? Which brings me, of course, to the one and only Shambu, right? And Mr. Savio has been illustrating Shambu for how many years now? 20
So
years?
almost 22, 23 years, because I started
23 years.
been somewhere around 2000, around 1998, 97, 98, I guess. That's when I started drawing Shambu. And Mr. Halbe had retired by then. And that was the time when Mr. Wire called me to the cabin and said that, you will have to draw Shambu. And I was like, really taken aback at that point when I was told that I have to draw Shambu, which is like, the iconic character in Tinkle. And I really didn't know at that point, whether I could really do Shambu. And so I just gave it a try. I spoke to Mr. Halbe and he said, "Don't worry, you'll get it right." But I never got it right for, I guess it's been forever now, because the way Halbe has been drawing Shambu was his own distinct style, and the way I've been drawing Shambu, it has got a bit of what Halbe used to draw, Shambu, the way he used to draw. But over the years, characters evolve, they adapt, and I guess every artist brings something to the original character. So I would
It's
say I would never be as good as Halbe is, but yeah, this version would be my version of Shambhu in that sense.
it's amazing. I have images of Shambu from when Mr. Halbe used to draw him, and this is an image of how Shambu is now. And you can see the amount of weight that like Shambu has put out over the years. Like he is so thin in these ones. Savio, why have
Exactly.
you given Shambu an obesity problem? Like
I that's no, that is something which has, like, it was all, I don't know how it happened though, but over the years Shambhu just put on weight, and it just went
I mean,
on very with his
if you look
personality.
at the art over the last 20 years, you can actually see Shambu putting on an inch in every like episode, like every
Korea
like story.
sort of makes sense because Shambu loves to eat and sleep. So
It does.
whatever.
It does fit. That's the thing. Like, even in terms, like we were talking about how, like, the characters have evolved, like, in storylines also. And like Shambu is a character who actually we saw responded to, the public sentiment to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
Because when the character was created, he was a hunter. It was around the mid 2000s that we switched Shambu over from, so we
Yeah.
stopped him from being a hunter and then made
Yeah.
him a conversationalist, right?
You know what, Korea, when Shambu was first created, they knew this fact about it, okay, because the movement had already started in the 60s and 70s, right? So when they
Mhm.
were creating it, that awareness was there, which is why you don't see too many shooting scenes or whatever, too much
Yeah.
animal harm anyway. So then that thought just went on. It evolved, and we reached a point, I think, in the 90s, if not 2000s, in the 90s, when we decided कि consciously we make him into a in the conservation angle, and we won't show the gun anymore. He'll if he has to shoot, he'll shoot with his camera.
Yeah. Even in the
Or
earlier stories, like Shambu would always be taking on a poacher or a man eater, like something that's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
very dangerous animal only. And even there,
yeah.
there was no killing. We've never had Shambu kill an animal. Like that's never been
Trapping is possible. Trapping
happening.
or a stone knocked a leopard down and fainted.
Yeah, but that's accidental. No, that's not something he plans.
Ah,
Although, like, we shouldn't tell anyone that, like,
no, no.
So this is the story of the characters so far. But along the way, we've also added many, many characters to the roster over the years, right? I think like mid 2000s, suddenly, I mean, of course, there's been a whole bunch in the past. And from like over the years, who's there in the magazine now? We have like the Defective Detectives, for example, who came up like mid 2000s.
Yeah, 2006, 2005, 2006.
And today they're like, I think like the second most popular like set of tunes as per our surveys and all of that
Yeah,
in the magazine, right?
yeah.
And then we had Ina Mina Maina Mo, who also popped up around that sort of time.
They were
Ina Mina
earlier.
was slightly earlier,
Yeah,
like
Mr.
late.
Halpe had drawn Ina Mina Manam.
It was based on Mr. Halbe's four daughters, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the story.
Yeah.
And going forward, like I mean, very recently over the last decade, under your editorship, Rajni, we've seen characters like Wingstar pop up. We've had Noise, the entire school series. We have Yog Yodas. We have Super Weirdos.
So,
Where, how, like, what is the inspiration for this? Like, when do you guys feel like, okay, now we need to add like a new character, and then like, where does the story go from there?
I think when I became editor, for me, there were two parts involved in it. One, I didn't see enough female characters, so I wanted to balance that out. Second, I didn't see enough children as characters. Supandi, Shambu, Tantri, they were all adults. And honestly, children relate the most to children. So I wanted to bridge that gap. So that was in my mind. Then another thing that happened was I took off from where Uncle Pai had left. Uncle Pai used to read letters a lot, right, from children and interact with them. So when they give you feedback, they actually tell you what they want. So they will tell you, I want superheroes, I want horror, I want adventure, I want a boarding school series. So you have ideas, you have lots of ideas in your head, but you want to do what your reader wants, right? So that is how Super Weirdos, Wingstar, Dental Diaries, your Noise, Yog Yodas, to be honest, Anurag Agarwal, our earlier CEO, he came to me and said we should do a series on yoga. And I was not too sure whether kids would immediately adapt to yoga. So I thought isko thoda aur fun karna chahiye. So I thought, for example, Kalaripayat, it is an ancient martial art and it is derivative from yoga. So I thought you add that in and you can make it interesting. So that is how one character after the other started, and we didn't have this plan ki we wanted this series or stable of characters. Just that you pay attention to the reader. When a character or a series is not working, they will tell you, I'm finding it boring. So you phase it out and then you bring something in, you try it with them, they like it, you keep it on.
That makes sense. That's a very organic way of like functioning, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, so my next question then is like, say for example, with Super Weirdos or Yogi Yodas, whichever. So you have like the basic idea, like say for Yogi Yodas, you had the idea. Okay, we want to do a series around yoga. We're going to use elements of Kalari Pai too. What happens like from there? Like, I mean, so do you think of like, like the concept of the Yogi Yoda itself as the warrior? Did you like conceptualize that and then decide, okay, I'm going to draw like an entire plot out and then think of like the characters that populate this universe? Or does it work the other way where you think, okay, these are some really nice characters, let's try to weave a story around them?
So Super Weirdos ka process was the second part, where with Super Weirdos, the process was internal and external. So internal in the sense that in my head, I wanted children to be more comfortable with being embarrassed by themselves. The odd quirks that you have in yourself. And I wanted a female character. This coincided with children wanting a superhero character. So then the character was already in my mind. And then from there, the stories were born. However, for Yogyodas, the process was a little opposite. I knew it was yoga and Kalaripait. Now, my process of writing a story is I needed to be organic. So I write it the way we used to read stories when we were kids, thirsty crow, go dashes wala technique. So it allows me a stream of consciousness that it keeps flowing, but allows me to tweak with the structure as well, where I want the middle to be the beginning or end or whatever like that. So in that, then organically the characters start building themselves up, making themselves known. So then I start writing from the character. So it's that kind of a process.
Rajo, I think like for our viewers, they'll be very interested in that method you just mentioned. The dashes wala thing. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? How does that work?
So, for example, when you write the Thirsty Crow, when you first came across that story, you didn't read it as a full text, right? You read it as Thirsty Crow dash, pot dash, water dash, pebbles dash. That's how it went. So when I write, Now what happens is, it sounds like a minor boast, but I think too fast. I don't type fast enough for myself. So
Is that
entire
your super weird power?
yeah. So entire sentences, I'm too impatient to write. So I write in this manner. I put down these thoughts, dash, 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 and then I look at it. And if I want to, there is an element that I feel would work better in the beginning. When you're writing in dashes, it's easier to juggle that around instead of entire sentences which you need to form fit. And it's comics also, so it works.
So I mean, so that's the other thing. Like I mean, so like leading from my earlier question, say Super Weirdos, for example, it is more about it's the adventure of the week wala like format, right? Where you have like Aisha discovers this new kid who has a superpower and there's a little story
Yeah,
around them.
yeah,
Whereas Yodas is like a running storyline, like which is
yeah,
from the start to finish. Not to say that Super Weirdos doesn't have running storylines, they do, but it's more about like every episode is a new like this thing. So
yeah.
is that something that you decide before you start writing the series itself, or is it something that just organically happens?
So from the time I have introduced series in Tinkle, one big rule that I have gone by was anyone who wants to pitch a story series to me, you come to me with the idea and at least 4 stories that will run in the series. So we don't start with a single idea that we just happen to become a series, because it flounders somewhere, then it becomes a force fit.
It becomes very hard to sustain.
Yeah. So in Super Weirdos, for instance, Super Weirdos, you can have infinite iterations because it is about the quirks in human nature. So weird superpowers, you can have any number of them. Plus, you have these weird super villains also. So, and now super animals. So that you can have. Whereas in Yodas, you need an arc. You can't have it can't be a story like a Supandi where you have a formula and you replicate it. So you need a definite curve that goes up and comes down. So, for instance, in Yodas, the 2 years I wrote, each year had an arc, and the culmination happened at the end of year 2. So that was plotted. And honestly, if I had not plotted it, I would have been tearing my hair apart, because taking care of the magazine as an editor and also writing a series like this, not possible.
It's not possible. So have you ever felt at any point, okay, this is it, this is all the story there is to it, or do you think there's more story to tell for these characters, for these
So
universes?
So in Super Weirdos, like I said, lots of iterations is possible, and we are discovering. So since last 2 years, we have been experimenting with story arcs for Tantri, for Yodas, for
Yes,
Defective
Tantri
Detectives.
became king.
Yes,
There's
he became king.
a big storyline like in Tinkle
Yeah.
a couple of years back.
So what I believe is, if you have an arc in mind, you can try different things with that character. So for example, Yodas, we had an arc. Defective Detectives, we went on a bunkum trunkum arc, and it went mad, and kids loved it. So even Tantri's arc, that the way he became king, how he dealt with it, that becomes so much interesting. So it introduces some newness into your writing and the way you see the character as well. Because Tantri became fresh in 2019, 2020. So I think any number of iterations and arcs are possible. You just need a good team to brainstorm with.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The other thing that I wanted to ask you actually is about now. This actually, I think you and Savio will have to answer in terms of like the design for these characters. So you've conceptualized the story, you have your plot line, you have if it's a series, you have the story concepts in the first 4 episodes. How do you guys like explain? Like, I mean, because it's such a visual medium, and as a scriptwriter, there's only so much you can do, right? A lot of it like lies in the hands of like the artist. So are you a writer who gives absolute freedom to the artist, or do you have extremely detailed short descriptions? Say, for example, like, someone like an Alan Moore, apparently is someone he gives very, very detailed descriptions of exactly what the scene needs to be, what the paneling needs to be like, where the light will come in from like the window. So do you take it to that level, or like is the artist given a free hand to do whatever, and then do you guys?
So I would say it's a mix of both, because largely what happens is you just give the scene and the setting, and the artists are talented enough to bring them to life. But what happens is, for example, I'll give you Yodas, for instance. When you're characterizing, there are certain things that are important to the storyline. Like, for example, the Yoda kids, Veer and Bala, have birthmarks. And there are certain powers associated with it. Because of the powers, there are certain yoga poses. So you need certain research and reasonings behind that. So when I was talking to Vineet, I gave him a lot of research on how I wanted, where I wanted it placed, things like that. The entire idea of Kuruva Island. I'd been to Kerala in Kuruva, and it's a lovely island. It's a bamboo island, and made me think of Kiran Island. And I wanted something that unique. So this something makes a difference, because it makes it unique there. Then even in your paneling, most of the time I wouldn't need to tell Vineet anything, because he's really good at action scenes and adventure. But where I think most writers would write in detail or give references. Sometimes you would even do those stick drawings to show Vineet those scenes which have impact, which have a turning point in the story. So, for example, in Yogyodas, there is a scene where this monster snake rises up from the depths of the water. And it's I put it in it as a vertical scene, because I wanted the size of the snake to come up, and the reactions as these scattered panels. So I put that in, and the two climaxes, there was a particular way I wanted the the appearance of the pranis to be. So the climax to happen. So that was in my head. There was no way Vineet would have understood that unless I sketched it all out. So I think I have the sketch of the last climax scene. So so that way you would put it in. Otherwise, mostly for Tinkle and comics, we don't. In fact, we encourage writers not to do too much detailing unless it is, for example. Yeah, there is, because then you want the artist also to express himself, herself, and the only place you would put it is, for example, if you want an expression, a dialogue on text, you wouldn't know what your expression is unless you put that down. Someone is being sarcastic or if they're smiling cheerfully. So, Savio, over to you.
Sav, yeah. So, Sav, as an artist, do you prefer it when the writer comes to you with like a very detailed description of exactly what he wants, or do you prefer just a one line where then you can think of the entire thing yourself?
No, exactly what Rajni said is quite true, because there are times when the writers have a particular vision. They know the visual in their mind, and like Rajni would put it, detailed version of it in text. There is this beautiful relationship which builds up between writers and illustrators. And I've seen that with Vineet. In fact, he went to the extent of even learning yoga, by the way. So the thing is that, once you understand what the writers want, and that takes time, once you understand, the way the writers write, it becomes very easy for the illustrators to draw that. And I've seen that with Kini's work. Abhijit Kini has been drawing DDs for such a long time. We don't have to give him much of a description, and he gets it right.
He's been drawing it so long, he just knows, okay, this is what.
Yeah.
This is
it's
the.
Not just that. I would add that with Abhijit, with Savio, their own sense of humor comes into play. So, for example, you may write a dialogue, you may write a scene. Then they would add, for example, Savio would add these small animals in the side who would react to the scene. That's not part of your script or story. That adds to it. But similarly, Abhijit also, he is very good at exaggeration of comedy. So you would write a scene and you give it to Abhijit, and it becomes so hilarious. So that works.
So that's really. It's not a technical job. They're not just little. They have to. There is a huge part of the artist in the writing and the writer in the art.
Yeah, there's a little bit of technique, because, for example, two parts again. When, for example, comics is a very economical medium, right? So you have very few panels. But for example, I wanted to show Yogyotas meditating, and they were meditating over the course of a day. Now, I didn't have enough panels to show that. So I used one panel and used it like a time lapse with the sun traveling behind them. And similarly, if I wanted an action sequence, so we are using specifically Colorified, right? So it is a technical form. So I would look up YouTube videos, pause it at certain instances and tell Vineet, look, this instance, I want this tactic used in the fight. So there you will have a little bit of technique involved.
Yeah, fair enough. Savio, this brings me to another question, and this is, again, leading from what I was talking about in terms of when you have a new series that comes to you, right?
Hmm.
And you see all these names on a page saying, okay, these are the characters in this thing, and this is what it's about. How do you guys go about designing these characters? Like, I mean, what is your inspiration for these characters? I mean, I'm sure there will be, okay, 10-year-old boy. Like, for example, like with Noise, there's Adi is a 10-year-old boy, Nadia is a 11-year-old girl, and like she's sporty, he's a little dramatic, blah. But like the specificness of this character, what is your inspiration for that? How do you like decide, okay, Adi will look like this, he will have a little curly hair, and he'll be slightly round, and like this is, I mean, what is your process?
So basically, the first thing which comes to the artist is the description of the characters which the writers would put down, and there is of course a back and forth which happens then. Like for example, if I could talk of Wingstar, when Vineet was designing Wingstar, it was again based on a lot of feedback which Sean, who was writing the character at that time, who had created the character, spoke of it, and there's a lot of discussion which happens between the writer and the artist, because there is a certain vision which the writer has in his mind, and it becomes a big challenge for that artist to understand what the writer wants. So the artist is going to be doing his best to give him different forms, shapes. The basic description is going to be there, like Wingstar is a 12-year-old girl, and she's from the Northeast, right? And then of course the costume design, the features, and everything comes in place. So there is this constant back and forth which happens, and it doesn't happen like over a weekend or anything like that. It would take a month, of course, sometimes to crack a character, and that has happened
How
with a
many,
lot of
so
characters.
just
Yeah.
to interrupt you very briefly, how many iterations of Wingstar would you guys have seen before the character exists as it does today?
Quite a
Two or
bit, in
three,
fact.
not that
Yeah,
many.
yeah.
Yeah.
In fact,
For
you
us,
just
2 or 3 is also quite a bit because you have to ask the artist to draw another version.
yeah. So in fact, we
Yeah.
wouldn't know how many sketches Vinith has done,
Beneath
but
is
then
done.
of yes, and of late, I guess again there's been the costume change which has happened recently. I guess last year
Yeah.
there was a costume change in Wingstar. So there are these minor changes which keep on happening, and I guess that's the life of a character. You always like to see something changing in them, like in terms of the gadgets that Wingstar is using. So all that has been happening with characters. So I guess uh, character development is a constant what do you call that, feedback which comes from the artists, from the writers, and the artists would be putting in their inputs. So I guess it's a process, and there is nothing
This,
definitive. Somebody may crack a character at the very first instant, you know but some characters may
hmm.
take time. That would be.
So this is interesting actually, because you spoke about how feedback like plays a huge role in like molding the character. And this takes me back to like how where we started this conversation was about how these characters have evolved over the years, right? Especially in terms of Tantri or Suppandi, Shambu. When do you guys like decide ki, okay, this character we need to give him like a sort of makeover right now? Is it what do you say, like a de facto move because there's a new artist in town, or is it a conscious decision ki, okay, maybe we need to make him like bigger or like thinner or taller or shorter, like say for
It's a
example with
conscious
Shambu,
thing.
you know, because
Oh, but
Shambu, like,
Shambu is not there.
I mean, no, I'm saying, yeah, so with Shambu and Tantri and like Supandi, like, like the character has differed over the years. And even while one artist draws these characters, even there you can see a little like evolution in these styles. One great
Yeah.
example of this is the Big Bang series, like Kalia, where how Kalia was drawn originally, then how Kalia used to be drawn 10 years back, and how, like, the characters in Big Bang appear now.
Yeah.
There's still like a major design like change, and it's still Archana drawing them, right?
Yeah, but that was a conscious thing, Korea. So Big Bang actually took a conscious shift with Lewis's time. So before me, the editor was Luis Fernandez. I think it was 2011, just that year when I was becoming editor, where he decided that Big Bang we should change from the realistic portrayal of animals that Pradeep Sathe used to do, and
Yeah.
should make them bipedal. And he had asked Arijit Datta Chaudhary to actually do
Okay.
the story. So that story happened, And then Kalia was, lots of kids were saying that, they wanted something new from Kalia because every time the jackal, Chamatika, wouldn't get to eat, and Kalia was always playing spoil sport. So we thought that anyway, there is this feedback. We're already changing the look. So let's change the world itself, and
Make it
expand
more
it to
playful
the
and
Indian
fun.
jungle, a more representative sample of the Indian jungle. I would say Supandi, Shambu, Tantri, the classic characters, the look of those characters was organic. That was not consciously thought about.
Yeah.
However, the storylines of, for example, Shambu going on a world tour now, or Tantri becoming king,
Yeah.
and or any of the defective detectives, the storylines are more conscious, and I think we arrive at that when we, as writers, we get tired of writing in a particular way,
No,
and
no,
we want
fair,
a
of
fresh
course.
change.
So when it comes to paneling on a page, who takes the lead, the artist or the writer?
The like how Rajni has mentioned, there are sometimes the writers who would have an idea of how they want their panels to be drawn, but most of the time also the artists would have a vision. So they would say, okay, fine, you know what, maybe this scene would look better if it's in a splash page. I remember it was a Wingstar story, and we took a double spread for that because it was going right across 2 pages. And that's when Vinith and the writers were constant. I guess it was Sean at that time. uh, but there was a constant, there was a lot of discussion about how you're going to show that scene. So that's where the dynamism of the storytelling comes in. And I really feel that over the years, if you've looked at how comics have evolved in terms of paneling, it just shows about how in fact artists have broken the system of panels. It's not been the traditional 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels as
Six
such.
panels, one page. Yeah.
So exactly. So that is gone off. You will have splash pages, you'll have panels in different shapes and sizes, and I remember a very good artist. His name is Gansham, and he draws amazing panels because his characters would break away from the panels. So the artists have got their own ways of their own styles come in, as far as paneling is concerned. And so Vinith experiments a lot with panels because of course that the dynamism, like I was telling in the stories, which help him to and he cannot have it in the usual format as such. Those stories and those characters demand that type of paneling. Same with Tantri and Shambu, of course, because there are these elaborate jungle scenes, and there are these
Yeah.
animals and stuff like that. So that's where again you can experiment a lot with paneling. So I guess it all depends from artist to artist and how they visualize story. But of course, there are guidelines also which comes from the writers when they have a particular angle, or a shot which they want, like over the shoulder angle or something like a bird's view. So all these do come up from the writers also when they have a particular scene in mind and they want the artist to draw in that particular way. So
Fair
yeah.
enough. So you mentioned Shambu, and I think this is very crucial because you've been drawing Shambu for 22 years. And one of the main, what do you say, requests that we have from our readers is when will we see Shambu's eyes, right? And I love, I love the fact that you've always managed to show Shambhu without wearing his hat at multiple instances across the stories in your 22 years illustrating the guy. But even then, we never see the eyes because you always manage to cover it with a branch, with a bird. He's bent onto some bush, there's a elephant in the way. So are those, and this again is a big secret that I want to unveil right now. Are those your ideas, or do the writers give you those ideas? Who's the
Actually,
genius behind that?
I remember at times, there was a challenge by some writers who would do their best to throw off Shambhu's hat, and it would be up to of course to the
The
artist
artist
uh,
to
to
to make
to
sure.
do that.
Oh, that's amazing.
So
That's
there's
like
always
that's
a
like
challenge.
the comic book version of Jugalbandi, basically.
Yeah, it is a Jugalbandi. And I remember one of it was, I think, Halbe's illustration where there's a bird flying in front, and so you cannot see. So
Yes.
Shambu is without a hat, and the bird flies across. And there have been a lot of instances where Shambu is knocked off his hat, and what do you do? So then you have to think smartly and not show his eyes. So I guess that's the fun part of drawing Shambu. And now that he's traveling, I get to experiment a lot with his costumes. So he's like he's
Yeah,
underwater or he's traveling somewhere. So you get to experiment a lot, and that's how I guess that keeps the characters so I would say lively, and that's a
dynamic.
challenge for an illustrator, and
For the
dynamic, of
artist
course,
also.
at the same time. Yes, that's great.
That's great. Okay, so I think we have another like 10 odd minutes to go. So in these 10 minutes, I have a very, very humble request to make as two like comic book like stalwarts of the industry. I have the immense pleasure to ask a big favor from you guys. And that favor is if you were to make me a kid's cartoon character, what would I look like? And will Savio do me the honor of actually drawing this out?
So our question to you is, Kuria, would you like to be a superhero or a super villain?
I'd like to be a super villain, please.
Okay.
Superheroes
So
are very boring, yeah. Like, I mean, supervillains have all the fun. No?
yeah, kids always like the supervillains better than the superheroes. You're going to be a child supervillain, okay? Not a adult
Okay.
supervillain. So
When I
what
still
kind
have the
of
beard,
powers? You want a child with a beard?
it'll be fun, no?
Okay,
I
fine.
feel my beard is like my most like redeeming quality.
Redeeming. Ah, okay. Do you think that will have some kind of superpower, your beard?
It could be like a magic beard, like like a beard that
Magic.
could like grow, like wherever.
Yeah, but it grows and does it have any particular power?
Maybe it could like stick to things like Spider-Man.
Oh, so you, oh God, your face
But
is
I
going to
swing my
upside
beard
down.
around, like I can swing from tree to tree using my beard or catch a
Okay.
bus.
Do you want any other aggressive power than just escaping from villains? Since you are a villain yourself,
Yeah, no, aggressive. I am not very aggressive.
you're not an aggressive villain.
I mean, you don't have to be an aggressive villain. No, I can be a gentleman villain.
Okay,
Like,
gentleman.
yeah.
Okay, so you have a beard that can stick to surfaces. Uh, uh, okay. Do you have any other power that you would like to have?
Uh, telepathy would be nice if I have the ability to read minds.
Read minds and a beard that sticks to surfaces. Okay. What are your weaknesses then?
I am very humble. I'm a
You're a
humble
very
person.
humble villain. This is not a villain. Villains are
I don't know
middlemen.
what are my weaknesses. So I'm lazy. I feel I'm a very lazy person. I can be more
Okay.
active. So I
ठीक
think
है.
that's good.
So, Savio, if your Photoshop is connected, we have a lazy villain with the power to have for the beard to stick to surfaces and to read minds.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Kuria, you're in an alternate
What
universe
is
now. Okay?
this is amazing. Like I can literally see myself come to life, but not really.
No, this is alternate dimension.
Oh, so
Kuria.
this is the Tantri version of me, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm super.
Okay, we are having the beard.
Yes, the beard is a
Yes.
big part of it.
It's
Like
a
long
since
beard.
it's
Beard that
a child who wants a beard, so it draws a beard on the face.
Okay, so this child has scribbled beard. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
scribbled beard, extra long beard. Why do I have a jail in where my mouth is supposed to be?
Oh, that's a thief.
That's what he needs.
Oh, that's my teeth. Wow, I thought like, why is my mouth being jailed? Have, have I been?
What's what's the costume that you're looking here?
Costume is
Yeah,
lab
I
coat.
was, I was going for lab coat, but now I feel like this looks very like Gabbar Singh, dude. Like, so maybe like we should take.
Actually,
Yeah, Samuel, how do you see me, bro? Like, this is like, I mean,
that's
like
why you
your
want to
mental, your
soften
mental
the
image of me is
profile.
like Gabbar Singh, basically.
I have make
Soften
you look
Sam,
quite
if you
intelligent.
try it ना, तो वो square jaw थोड़ा soften कर ले.
Acha. So make this little roundish.
Yeah, little bit. हाँ,
Okay.
थोड़ा innocence there. Yeah.
Longer beard, make the beard longer.
Yeah, drawn
Okay.
beard, no longer.
Yeah.
And
Maybe lab coat with shorts.
Yeah, I think Gabbar Singh is like a good outfit. Let's go with a Gabbar Singh type outfit.
A few moments later.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Korea, you
This is
regret it, yeah?
amazing. I'm like,
regret
yeah, why did I even ask this? This is like, I want this. Savio, you have to send this to me after this is done. Like, this is like a Savio's interpretation of me as a children's character. I look like a children's supervillain, but like a person who possibly kidnapped children, you know, like.
Looks
This
so
looks
creepy.
like the kind of photo that parents show their kids and say, stay away from people like this. You
Yeah.
know? It looks like a kid with a very adult face, though.
Yeah. You give him beard. So what do you do?
Exactly.
Automatically, the beard like becomes this thing.
Yeah, take away the beard and he'll be fine.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. So, when we look at characters, like, for example, if I have to take off the beard,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so this is where the fun part is. Like,
Yeah.
This is where this is the same character aged down a little.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, when you have to uh, modify your character.
Oh wow, this is really cool.
Yeah.
What is that line which me? Is that a mustache? Is it mouth? What is it?
No. This is a big smile. I'm just giving a big smile.
Smile.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can have the hair again. Yeah.
It's a villain, huh? So at least eyebrows ko thoda villainish kar lo.
This is like a nice version of the character.
Yeah.
Before and after.
So this brings us to the end of the session, guys. This was so much fun. Before we wrap the session, let me remind you guys, all the characters that we spoke about today, you can read more about them. You can read their adventures and stories on the Tinkle Comics app. We have entire character collections dedicated to each of these stories. These characters appear regularly in the pages of Tinkle. New stories come out every month on the app now. In very limited edition, there is a print edition that goes out, but they sell out very, very fast. So you have to rush to a bookstore to buy it if you want a brand new copy. That's pretty much the entire session. Do stay tuned to all different like mediums to see Tinkle in like in new and brand new avatars. Over the years, we've had Supandi appear as a cartoon character on TV. Shambu's appeared in his own animated short, in the theaters. We have a brand new series of Shambu that's like in the works. We also have some other animated series that's in the works. So whenever you see these characters in their avatars, be sure to read more about them, like them, share them with your friends, tell them about them, and get more people to come to the wonderful world of Tinkle. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.